When we bought our house, there was one thing that we weren't too convinced about, and it was the kitchen. It had a door that was quite in the way and made the room much smaller, as the layout had to be done in a way that everything would fit without the door being in the way. So we took several things into account, some advice, some tricks, but above all, mistakes. There are some that we avoided, but others not entirely. So just today I want to talk to you about that, about mistakes in small kitchens. The first mistake, and this one too I think we had, is thinking about the work area, that we already had enough work area, that is enough countertop. And the truth is that maybe there is quite a lot of area. But then you place the microwave, the coffee maker, the air fryer, 80,000 machines on top, decorative jars, you place a lot of things on top. And this work area keeps getting smaller until in the end, well, you have a small piece left to be able to do things. It might be fine for one person, but it gets quite complicated when 2 or 3 people want to do several things simultaneously. It is true that we, for example, placed a peninsula, and even though it was a little bit in the middle, it was an area to separate the kitchen from the door that leads us to the bathroom. We wanted to create a bit of a barrier. That peninsula worked out super well for us, as we used it more as a workspace than a dining area, so we were saved on that front. But the rest of the countertop is quite occupied by other things, mostly appliances, and we don't have as much space as we would like. So when it comes to distributing it, it's very important to think about the workspace, and above all, if we can elevate the appliances or have them hidden or in drawers. Hiding them in some way, well, 1,000 times better, because that way that workspace will be free for us to work. If we don't have space or it's too small, what can we do? Well, we can opt for something we did in my parents' apartment. The kitchen was very tiny and we had to find some way to expand it to have more workspace, but at the same time not take away space from the dining room. So we made a foldable bar. We can lower and raise it as needed. For example, if there's only one person cooking, they're there in the kitchen, and that little bit of bar is enough if 2 people are going. Or if they want to eat or sit down and have a few beers, we open the bar and we can sit on both sides of it. It's a different practical way that allows us to give that versatility to the space. Common kitchen mistakes include not utilizing needed items and failing to make use of the higher spaces in the kitchen. It's true that sometimes it's complicated when it comes to distributing, and that the space doesn't look even more reduced by the fact of putting many drawers on top. Oh, the little branch? But if we don't put enough storage area and leave many things inside, it's almost worse than not having them hidden. For example, above our fridge we had a super large gap where at first we thought about not putting anything because it might look very cumbersome above the fridge. A drawer. In the end, we decided to place one of the drawers that we had left over from the kitchen, put it in reverse and use it as a chest of drawers. We are infinitely glad we did it, because you always run short of drawers, especially in the kitchen. It's true that many things you can store in the dining room, like the dishes and all that, but in the kitchen, a lot of stuff is stored, so we have to consider that we need storage for all those things. What was the mistake in this case when making that drawer? Well, we only used a small piece when we could have made it to the bottom. And it's true that it's much harder to access, but we all know that there are things we need more at hand and others that stay further back. Well, the summer fridge, which you use 3 times a year, can go all the way to the back, and everything, the most useful things then, in the closest part, to be able to access in an easy and simple way. And speaking of furniture, we come to the next mistake, which is putting up shelves instead of furniture. It is true that in large kitchens, for example, I love how they look, in fact, in small ones too, but you have to opt for the most practical part or not. Beautiful. I have sometimes made that mistake in some of the renovations I have done in my house, and I have opted more for the beautiful than for the practical. And then I regretted it, because we can achieve something that is practical at the same time that's beautiful, which may not be what you like the most, but that practical part is very important. Does that mean we shouldn't put up shelves? No, I would definitely put up shelves, but in areas where you can't put a piece of furniture. That is, if we had chosen to put shelves on top of the fridge, it probably would have been much less optimized than it is now. There's a drawer, but that doesn't mean we can't put a shelf in an area where nothing else would fit. And there, well, we can place the little cups and so on and free up, well, another space in the drawer. We can not only opt for shelves, but we can also place other types of storage accessories. Likewise, there are bars for hanging little things inside the cabinets. There are also others for placing the pans, pots, so that they are better organized and easier to access. We also made this mistake. I've talked to you before about it, and it's the fact of not raising the appliances above all. I'm referring to the microwave. The microwave, it takes up space. It depends on the microwave you buy, but they are usually quite big. If you put it front facing, from the front view it doesn't look so big, but if you put it sideways, well, besides being unattractive, it occupies significant countertop space, which is crucial to keep free, as mentioned earlier. So if we can opt to raise it, for example, put a shelf and place it at height, embed it in a cabinet or place it in a low cabinet. I've also seen that quite a bit. You open it, heat it up, and then you take out the dish and the microwave, it's not visible. There are several options we can choose from to have a more uncluttered kitchen and the microwave, so it doesn't take up unnecessary space. The next thing is very important, and it's the sliding door. We had a door that opened normally, let's say it came in like this and that's it, and we changed to a glass sliding door. We are really very happy, especially for that, because our kitchen is not excessively large, it's rather medium small. What do we do with the spaces that are hard to reach? For example, if we have a column in the middle, or for whatever reason we can't access it in a simple and easy way, we can choose to put up a blind. That's what was happening to us. We had a column right in the middle of the furniture and we couldn't access it. We also couldn't put a door because our hand wouldn't fit if we put the door. So we created a blind invention, although they do sell it in several places. You order a blind and they make it to measure. We decided to make it on our own, but as I said, you can buy it. And the fact of being able to have a blind, being able to access a space that would be unusable. It's a very, very good option to add extra space in our small kitchen. As for the colors of the kitchen, I would recommend doing it in light colors, in colors that are, well, beige, pink, stick, a blue, turquoise. I really like these colors. It is true that in dark colors it also looks very beautiful, and even if it is small, it shines, but for me, as a personal preference, I like light colors more in a small kitchen. That being said, if we change the doors, I think it's a great idea to paint them white. If we're going to paint it, I would recommend a different color because we painted ours white, the kitchen. But what is the problem? If you get a stain on it, especially if it's coffee, you better clean it immediately, because if you leave it, even after cleaning, it won't be completely white. You can see a different color there. It doesn't look all smooth and well placed. What could we do to paint it and make it white? Well, what I would do, and that's what we're going to do. In our case, it's to give it a final finish, either glossy or matte, but a final finish using a finishing varnish. And so, if something jumps out at you, like we did, for example, on the countertop of my parents' apartment, we put a final transparent layer on top. If something jumps out at you, you clean it, and that's it. We didn't do it, we painted it white, and there are little things, especially coffee, the stain stays, then you clean it after a few days. And well, in short, what am I going to tell you? Does your sight go there every time you go palm? These are details that you learn as you do little things. For example, in my parents' apartment, this doesn't happen because it's blue. I love that kitchen, I really like how it turned out, and I think the color is super appropriate. The topic of painting the kitchen will give us material for another video, as there are many things I want to explain about this subject. So, we'll talk about this later, about the paints for the kitchen. But in my parents' apartment, it doesn't happen. Precisely because it's not a very light color, so if something falls, well, you clean it up and it's not noticeable. On the other hand, the white in our house is another story. And finally, I'm going to show you some things, some ideas that I've seen that I find very interesting. And they are versatile furniture, more like versatile tables, shelves that transform into a table, or furniture that you pull out and it turns out to be a table. You can also pull out the little stools. I think they are also ideal options for small kitchens, and we can take them into account when creating our ideal kitchen, even if it is small. And well guys, these are the little tricks and mistakes that I have noticed during the time we have been doing the renovations. I hope these were helpful. See you in future videos. Bye for now.